Okay, so let's begin today's lecture by noticing we've got in FileZilla, that's my FTP program, I've got some files on the left and I got some that's the local. I got files on the right, that's the remote. And I want to take a look specifically at functions.php. And you notice there I've got two functions in particular that I want to talk about. One is called connect and the other is called view3fields. Now the view3fields has four parameters, the name and the three field names, which I've called F1, F3. The function connect is the one I want to worry about right at the moment, and that one's got my username and password in it, and of course I don't want the whole world knowing that my secret password is fluffy. So what I'm going to do, so I don't have a particular function time and time again, is I'm going to cut that function out of the functions.php page, and I'm going to put a brand new page, and all that's going to be in that particular page is that function called connect, and I'm going to set that page as connect.php. That way I'll have two files that I need to load at the beginning, one called connect and one called function. I can show functions to my friends without worrying about them seeing my secret password. Now back to the functions table. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take that view3fields function and I'm going to copy it and I'm going to paste it just above it. So of course I can't have two versions of the same function. What I'm going to do is rename the one I just created view3fields sum records, because the purpose of this lecture is to some of the fields, in this case 3, of some of the records. We're not sure which ones, but in order to find out, I've got to add two more parameters. One is what I'm going to call $SF, which stands for the search field. So what field are you going to search? And I'm going to have str, which is going to be the string of in that field. And whenever we have a match, that's what's going to be in my result set. Now, a properly done program would include comments. I typically don't put comments simply because of the room in the screen size. I can't always fit that in, but I want to just define what each of those fields, or I'm sorry, each of those variables are. So T is for table, F1, F2, and F3 are the first, second, and third fields that are going to be displayed, which is different from SF, which is the search field, and of course str, the string, is the value that you're looking for within that search field. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a function called createSQL. There's a purpose for this down the road when we alter it even more than we are right now, but for the moment I'm going to create a function called createSQL, and it's going to have three parameters. It's going to have $T, and it's going to have $SF, the search field, and $str, the string. So T, of course, is table. So I'm going to create an SQL statement that goes beyond the select star from $T$, and it adds the where $F, the search field, is like, and this is where I have a single quote single quote %, $str, %, single quote. And the reason for that is because that string says the % means anything. So it can begin with anything. It has to have that search string, str, somewhere in there, and it can end with anything. So it could begin, could end, or somewhere in the middle we'd have that. Now, of course, $SQL is just a string itself. And I opened it with a double quote, and so of course I have to close it with a double quote. And like all good commands, end it with a semicolon. So I've now created whatever my search string or my SQL statement is going to be. Notice in this case I said select star because I'm selecting everything, even though I may not necessarily use everything. And on this particular function, I'm going to just return $SQL. So the purpose of this function is to take three parameters, table name, search field, and the search string, and turn it into an SQL statement. Now down below on line 14, I already have an SQL statement. It says $SQL equals select star from $T. That was selecting all records of $T of table. So I just changed that to say $SQL equals create SQL, and in parentheses the three parameters, $T, $SF, and $STR. Now, let's open up a brand new page, and I've got your typical stuff there of HTML, head, body, and inside the body, that's where I'm putting my PHP code. And first thing I'm going to do is include both connect.php and functions.php. I include both those, and then I connect to the server. At that point, I'm going to set up some variables. Like, for instance, $T is going to be my USA database table. And my three fields that I'm going to display, I've decided are going to be state name, region, and flower, just because that's what I want. Now, I have my search field being region and my STR being New England. And what we, of course, know is that then that's going to say where region like New England. So it can have something, it's going to actually be an exact match to New England, we know that. And all I have to do is call that function, view three fields, some records, and in parentheses I have my six variables, 6 parameters. Now I'm going to save that file as somerecords.php, and of course I ship it up there with my FTP program from my local drive on the left to my remote drive on the right, and I put it there. While I'm at it, I'm going to have to update my index.php page, just add one more line so I can have a link to the sum table. And so when I get to my index page, I see there's a link to some records, and I click on that, and sure enough, there it is. From the USA table, I have the state name, the region, and the flower fields on display, but only the ones where the region equals New England. Now that's a useful program, but the whole point of having some records is that I don't always want the same sum records. Maybe I don't want the region to be equal to New England. Well, let's go back to that file, and I'm going to put a peculiar statement here on line 18. It's going to say if, and then in parentheses it says $_get bracket single quote SF single quote bracket parenthesis. Whoa. First of all, if statements have to have the parentheses. That's why they're there. And inside that is a particular function. It's a get function that begins with a $_get. And the function is SF. And that's where the brackets and the single quotes surround SF. And what that says, it doesn't have it equal to anything. So that means if that function, if that variable exists, then you're going to do the next thing. And the next thing is on that same line 18, and it says, in curly braces, $SF equals $_get of SF. The SF, of course, having the brackets and the single quotes, closing with a semicolon. So what that means, and what is this get variable? I didn't really explain it. Well, that get variable is something that you can put on a web page at what I'm going to call runtime. And we got one more to put here, though. If the get str exists, then str equals get str. So what that's telling me is it's going to be region equal New England or region like New England unless I add 2 additional parameters, SF and str. Where do I add those? The get variables are added on the URL. So we can take a look. The same exact website, same exact web page, but after the somerecords.php, I put a question mark, SF equals flower, and STR equal rows. And what we find, there are 4 states that have the word rows in the flower somewhere. Maybe at the beginning, maybe at the end, maybe middle, we don't really know, we don't care. But the flower field has rows in it. So it overrode the region equals New England. Now, change that to be flower and blossom. And what do we find? We find 4 different states from different regions. Some have apple, some have orange, and some have peach blossom. So what I've done is I've made this a little bit more versatile. But let's think about that. This is only in the USA table. what would I need to do to make it good for any table? Still only 3 fields. Okay, I would have to add get variables for table, F1, F2, and F3, which means I would have a big, long URL. That would be the name of the website and the sumrecords.php, and then that question mark, and I'd have to list all 6 of them. But if I did that, I could have any table showing only 3 fields, but any table showing any 3 fields of some of the records.